Emily had grown used to the rhythm of late nights, the clinking of glasses, the muffled laughter, the occasional bar fight that needed breaking up. At 23, she wasn't exactly living her dream. Life had forced her into survival mode after her parents passed away, leaving her to care for her younger brother, Michael. The bar job wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. It paid the bills, barely, and that was enough for her. That Friday night was no different at first. The bar buzzed with its usual mix of regulars, college kids, and tired workers looking for a drink to erase the week. Emily darted between tables, weaving through the crowd with practiced ease, a tray balanced on her hand. It wasn't until she glanced toward the far corner that she noticed someone out of place, a frail-looking old man in a tailored, though slightly outdated, suit. His posture was stiff, his hands trembling as he smoothed the crease of his trousers. He didn't order a whiskey or a beer like most of the patrons, just a simple soda. Emily thought nothing of it at first, but the old man drew attention quickly. Two men, probably in their 30s, well-dressed but with that slick, restless energy she'd learned to recognize, slid into the seats beside him. Their smiles were wide, their words fast, their gestures too polished. Emily passed by once and caught snippets. Once in a lifetime deal, guaranteed return, just need a signature. She frowned. The old man's face was a mixture of confusion and politeness. He kept nodding, as though afraid to offend them, his wrinkled hand trembling slightly as he reached into his pocket for a pen. Emily's instinct screamed at her. She had seen this scene before, though usually not with rich-looking old men in suits. Scams came in many forms, but the pattern was always the same: pressure, charm, a quick signature before doubt crept in. Balancing her tray, she approached their table with casual steps, masking her urgency. "Sorry to interrupt, sir," she said, placing a fresh glass in front of the old man as if it had been ordered. She leaned in just slightly and added, her tone steady but kind, "Your son called. He said not to sign anything until he speaks with you." The old man blinked, startled. "My son," he repeated, as if trying to recall when. The scammers stiffened instantly, their smiles slipping into irritation. One of them muttered, "She doesn't know what she's talking about." But Emily didn't look at them, she kept her gaze on the old man, giving him the reassurance he needed. He hesitated, then slowly tucked his pen back into his jacket pocket. "I think I'll wait," he murmured. The men shot Emily sharp glares, their polished charm cracking. With a few choice curses under their breath, they stood and stormed out of the bar, leaving the old man behind. Emily exhaled, relieved, and gave him a small smile. "That one's on the house," she said, sliding the soda toward him. The old man studied her for a long moment, his eyes soft with gratitude. "You saved me tonight, young lady," he said quietly, almost ashamed at how close he had come to being tricked. Emily only shrugged, brushing it off. "Just part of the job," she replied, before heading back into the chaos of the bar, never imagining how that small act would ripple into her future. The night of the scam faded quickly into memory for Emily. She was used to strange encounters in the bar, and her life left little room for dwelling on them. Between her exhausting shifts, cooking simple meals for her brother, and trying to keep up with overdue bills, she barely thought about the old man again. To her, it had been just another night, another crisis averted. But about a week later, as she was wiping down the counter after the dinner rush, the door opened. With an odd hush, the usual crowd barely noticed, but Emily did. It was him, the same old man in the tailored suit, but this time, he seemed more deliberate, less lost. He walked slowly, supported by a driver in a crisp black uniform who carried a leather briefcase. The atmosphere of the bar seemed to shift. Emily's coworkers raised their eyebrows, regulars stopped mid-drink to glance over. Men like him didn't come to places like this twice. He took a seat at the counter where she was working and gave her a warm smile. "You might not remember me," he began. Emily chuckled, grabbing him a soda without asking. "Of course I do. The gentleman who almost signed away his fortune. Hard to forget." He laughed softly, his shoulders relaxing. "My name is Charles Whitmore," he said. The name clicked faintly. She had heard it before, maybe in the news, maybe on one of those business magazines she'd seen in waiting rooms. But she couldn't place it exactly. Charles leaned closer, his voice gentler now. "I've thought a lot about that night. You didn't hesitate to protect me from those men. You risked their anger, and for what? You didn't know me. You had nothing to gain." Emily shifted uncomfortably. She wasn't used to praise. "I just didn't want to see anyone get hurt," she said simply. Charles nodded, his gaze steady. That's exactly what struck me. In my world, people are always calculating what they can get, what they can win. But you acted without hesitation, without expectation. He gestured to his driver, who placed the briefcase on the bar and opened it carefully. Inside were neatly stacked documents, papers that smelled faintly of ink and leather. Emily glimpsed property deeds, legal contracts, and something that looked like a scholarship fund. Her brows knitted. What is all this? This, Charles said, his tone both matter of fact and deeply personal, as opportunity. For you, for your brother, for the life you deserve but haven't had the chance to reach. Emily froze, unsure if she had misheard. Wait, you want to invest in me? Charles smiled. Yes, education, housing security, a future. You gave me something priceless that night, Miss Emily, faith in human kindness. I want to return that favor by giving you the tools to build a life beyond this bar. Her heart raced. A mix of shock, disbelief, and fear twisted inside her. She wasn't used to gifts, much less life-changing ones. For years, she had taught herself not to expect miracles. Yet here one was, sitting in front of her, offering her brother and herself a different future. And for the first time in years, Emily felt something dangerous stirring inside her, hope. Emily didn't sleep much the night Charles presented his offer. She lay awake staring at the ceiling of her tiny apartment, listening to the soft breathing of her younger brother in the next room. Could it be real? Men like Charles Widmore didn't walk into your life twice, let alone offer to change it. Her instinct told her to be cautious. After all, she'd spent years fighting to survive on her own, and nothing ever came without strings attached. The next few weeks, Charles returned to the bar a handful of times, always at quiet hours, always alone or with his driver. He never pressured her, never tried to buy her trust with flashy promises. Instead, he asked her questions no one had asked in years. What did she dream of doing? What did her brother want to be when he grew up? If money weren't a burden, what would she study? Slowly, Emily found herself opening up. She admitted she had once wanted to go to business school, to learn how to manage and grow something of her own, instead of serving drinks until her feet ached every night. She confessed that her brother, Michael, dreamed of becoming an engineer but might never afford college. Charles listened with the patience of someone who truly cared. And then, piece by piece, he began to build a bridge for her future. He connected her with a reputable business school and offered to cover her tuition. He set aside a trust fund specifically for Michael's education. He even arranged for Emily to move into a modest but safe apartment, away from the moldy walls and leaky pipes of her old place. At first, Emily fought the guilt that came with accepting his help. She worried about becoming dependent, about owing him more than she could repay. But Charles was gentle in his insistence. You don't owe me anything, he said one evening over dinner. You already gave me more than you know. Months passed, and Emily's life began to transform. She no longer rushed from work to exhaustion. Instead, she sat in lecture halls, scribbling notes with a determination she hadn't felt since high school. Michael studied in his own corner of their new apartment, smiling more often, his eyes bright with possibility. For the first time, Emily allowed herself to believe they were not trapped by circumstance. One evening, after a long day of classes, Emily met Charles for dinner at a quiet restaurant. He looked older, frailer, the lines on his face deeper. But his eyes sparkled with warmth. Between bites, he leaned back and studied her. Do you know why I chose you? He asked. Emily shook her head. Because when no one was watching, when you had nothing to gain, you chose to protect me, he said softly. That's the kind of person who deserves a future. One day, you'll be in my shoes, and I hope you'll remember to do the same for someone else. Tears welled in Emily's eyes as his words sank in. She realized then that what began as a simple act of courage in a dimly lit bar had blossomed into something far greater, a second chance not only for her, but for her brother. And maybe, someday, she would be the one to pass it forward.